Hello, welcome to Enchanted Moments podcast. I'm Monica.
I'm Spencer.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we're experiencing this year. They are not just spiritual changes, so many of them are energetic changes in our universe. And maybe by explaining some of those actual science behind the feelings, we can alleviate some of the stress associated with them. Because there's not much you can do about some of those things that are affecting us in today's environment. But we've all been feeling like something's a little different, something's a little off. And that's just niggling little feelings that you get that, something's happening. I don't feel like I'm controlling it. We get a lot of people who ask us that question. What's going on? Something's bothering me, or I feel things are changing, but I can't put my finger on it, etc., etc. One of those changes from a spiritual standpoint is shifting our consciousness. And most people don't associate scientific changes and energetic changes and Schumann resonance and sunspots and things with spiritual shift. However, they're all happening at the same time and for a reason. So let's define ascension, because I think everyone has a very different idea. Even very knowledgeable people, I think, their expectations are that there's going to be some humongous physical thing happen. Mm-hmm. And I want you to take that off the table. This is not the rapture. It didn't happen, but if it does, I'm all for it. But we are not going to float up into space. That is not ascension. We associate ascension with religious experience, like somebody rising from the dead and ascending into heaven. That was true for almost every faith or belief system from beginning of time. Zoroastrianism, Mithras, all of those prophets, etc., were virgin births. They all died. They all ascended. So we are trained to believe that, you have to ascend physically at the end to have it be ascension. Not true. That is not what we're dealing with today anyway. Today's world, we are dealing with a shift in consciousness. So when we say we're going to shift into fourth dimension or fifth dimension, we are not moving physically to another location, okay? Mm-hmm. So everybody's like, well, where will I go and what will happen? And it's not that kind of shift. It's a consciousness shift. And that in and of itself is, I hope, calming to most people who haven't given it much thought or just have that feeling that I don't know what happens when I shift into fourth dimension or fifth dimension. It's a consciousness shift. So your life does not change physically. Eventually it might, because you're going to incorporate a whole lot of different kinds of belief systems and processes into your daily life, but you're not going to be in some other place. Like we think about fairies live in a different dimension, angels are in a different dimension. Those are physical dimensional changes. We're talking consciousness shifts, not dimensional shifts. So we're not leaving, we're not moving to a new location. It can be a very powerful change in someone's life, but it also could be very minimal. Because when we talk about the fourth level of consciousness, fourth change into fourth dimension basically, but it's consciousness, it's a subtle change. If you already are a believer in the unity of all things and the basic goodness of all things, then your shift to fourth is not going to be a humongous shift. And it probably won't be for anybody who does shift, because honestly, maybe creme, everyone won't shift. And it's not a judgment if you don't. It's just that that's not where your consciousness is, and where your soul journey is not to do that. So it's not a contest. We're brought up to think, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm not as good as, or why didn't I make that shift? Somebody else did. And it's not that. We have to let go of those weird, judgmental, as good as, or whatever. Hi, thanks. Yeah. Because that's not what it's about. It's so, and you may not even know if somebody has made a shift, although you're probably going to see a lot broader thinking from people who are going to make that consciousness shift. Now, fifth dimensional processing is a little bit stronger. There is nothing but oneness. Time is not important. Life all is happening at the same time. You're taking a much broader, universal, galactic kind of perspective on life and spirituality. So it may affect people differently, but it just takes you from, into that whole realm of unconditional love. Not a question anymore. When you're in the fifth dimensional consciousness, you do not have that judgment. You have unconditional love for everything. Everyone is equal. All life is equally important. So animals are as important as people, as plants, as the planet. So it's a big, broad perspective on spiritual thought, belief, etc. So I think I've got a couple little things here on fifth dimension too. Yeah, it's focused on unity, love, and oneness. Expanded awareness, inner wisdom. You will have less reliance on time. Right now, and we're going to talk about cosmic history and time as its own little dimension in coming time on our podcast. But for right now, our fourth dimension, actual dimension, is time. So somebody who's fifth dimensional thinking and processing and consciousness level, then they're just not as defined by time. It's still going to exist. We still have appointments, et cetera, et cetera. But if enough people make that shift, we could change that. We might not need to have as much structure in our daily lives as we think we do. I'm hoping that a whole bunch of people make that shift from third to fourth to fifth dimensional thinking and beliefs, because then we will constantly be in the right place at the right time. We will have that wisdom, that inner soul wisdom that allows us to be in the flow all the time. We won't be making difficult decisions because we'll just know which one is best for us. So hopefully, if enough people make the shift, the entire planet will shift up that way. And if the entire planet makes it to the next level of consciousness, then the others will not feel left out. They really won't, but they'll be drawn in and probably moved a little bit forward themselves. So it's that tipping point that we kind of hope for, that takes the majority enough that it changes the whole. Does that sometimes I don't make sense, but there's an awful lot of people who are checking out. If you notice, if you've noticed, I don't know if you have or not, but many people have been leaving. And maybe it just wasn't the right time for them. They don't want to go through a change. They're happy the way they are. It's too stressful to think about, and so they didn't want to be part of that. And that's okay, because everybody isn't supposed to be the same. And all of our journeys are unique, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
So we can't place judgments on others' decisions, but in some cases, for different levels of consciousness, it's a stressful thing to even think about. And especially new souls. I think those of us who've been around a while don't have as much angst about it, but if you're a new soul and you're just getting your life in order and you don't have that much experience with consciousness and your soul action and your higher heart, then it could be something that I don't think I want to hang for that. It's just not in their plan, so they don't. The thing about the fifth dimension thinking to consciousness is you'll see all the timelines. You'll become aware of all the timelines. And you'll be able to see it. Whether you choose to do anything with it is the free will aspect. But we'll see more timelines. So we'll know what happens if we do certain things as opposed to just feeling that we might have it. So you're going to have a much broader awareness of that. But I don't think that comes the first day.
I would say
no. I think that comes with time at that level of consciousness that we get, into it and comfortable with it, and then we can expand that as well. But I think it should be very cool. I hope that I get to make that switch, but like I said, every night I go to sleep, I go, we all shift happily. We all shift happily. And if it's not me, I'm hoping it's great for everybody else.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. So as you are considering what ascension means to you, it is not a big physical change. We want to make sure everybody goes there because you're not going to disappear and your family's not going to miss you. You're just going to change your consciousness level. So you physically are still in this body, you're physically still under contract with your soul, you still have all those things going on. You will just have a different awareness level and approach to those things that you don't have in third dimensional consciousness thinking. So, and many people are cuspy right now anyway. They're sort of fourth dimensional, sort of third dimensional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they may just go fully into fourth level thinking and consciousness, which is great. Doesn't mean you have to switch to fifth, but it's an opportunity right now energetically on the planet to do that. And I want to expand a little bit on those energetic changes that are happening because they are explainable. Some of the energetic shifts we are having significantly more solar flares, and the effects of those solar flares changes the density of energy on our planet and the magnetic fields. And the Schumann effect is changing the magnetic resonance.
And what is the Schumann effect?
Yeah, let me give it to you really, really specifically. It's a magnetic resonance surrounding the Earth. It's our natural electromagnetic frequency. It's actually driven by lightning and solar flares, and the shifts are caused by variations in our ionosphere. And it's ionization too of our atmosphere. So some people follow it very closely. Stevie does. She follows what the Schumann resonance is for a particular day, and if it's going to be an actual, higher level of magnetic, electromagnetic energy or lower, but that is actually changing the thickness and density of our atmosphere. It's really odd. For our environment, it can change things that are Schumann resonance is considered safe, but some research suggests that it can affect human health. Brainwave activity, mood, sleep patterns, and a correlation between blood pressure. And it can also be calming. So it has an effect So if you're having difficulty sleeping, you might want to check and see if the Schumann resonance level is high. Might be why our sleeping patterns are crazy. It's just published in medical journals, actually. When we have a lot of electromagnetic changes in our ionosphere, it does affect people's moods and blood pressure and health aspects. So it's something to keep in mind that even though we're trying to make sense out of the spiritual shifts, the planet is also getting a lot of bombardment into its ionosphere and atmosphere from solar flares and lightning and lots of things going on. In fact, I've noticed a lot of things of people being hit by lightning. It's in the news now, and it's very weird because you never hear about it, but they're bringing it up. So I'm thinking it's probably has a frequency that's going up that we're not aware of. But the news is, if the news is saying anything about people being hit by lightning, it's probably more frequent than we recognize. But there's physical energy shifts happening now. And if you also notice, if you pay attention, we are having significant numbers of earthquakes and significant numbers of volcanic eruptions. And those create shifts in the earth as well. We already know that magnetically the earth is now, the crust is moving in a different direction than it was. So it's going to cause more earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, because it's moving in a different direction, and those things react to that. So just pay attention to what's going on in the world. It's important. It's not just something that happens somewhere else. We had a 6.3 earthquake in Alaska, and we had two off the coast of Oregon last week. There's a lot of things that are going to affect us that we just don't pay that much attention to. We should, because it's indicative of the changes that are happening. Our magnetic north has been moving towards England. So, if you get a compass out, you're not pointing to the North Pole, the physical location of the North Pole. Now your North Pole is, somewhere between Greenland and the UK. So you have to be aware of everything that impacts your life. It's not just what happens here or what happens in Ohio or what happens in the United States, it's global. And our ancestors didn't have the opportunity to know some of those things. So 12,000 years ago, when the polar shift took place and we flipped from, North Pole, South Pole, it caused ice melt, and we had a giant flood, and they had no idea. They thought everything was happening to them.
Right.
It wasn't. It was happening globally in different ways. So we have the ability to keep track of some things that they didn't have. So I suggest that you raise that awareness level of what's happening on the globe, and make sure that, it doesn't come as a surprise. I'm sure, our 12,000-year-old ancestors were surprised. I mean, that's not something, and they didn't understand the science behind a lot of the changes that take place. What's an earthquake? What's a volcanic eruption? Yada, 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 Those people in Pompeii should have been paying more attention. But those are things we can pay attention to now, and look it up and read the information that's out there. It's important that we combine everything we know about our environment with our personal physical environment and with our spiritual environment. So it's a big deal right now on our planet. And I think that it's important that everybody pay attention. If you're feeling and your mood changes a lot, don't just assume it's because, it's been raining, or you're having difficulty or whatever, try to figure out if it's an electromagnetic occurrence that day that really shot you into a weird mood. If it's not, then we need to do something about our overall mental health. But don't just assume things anymore. I think there's a lot of science that's coming to the forefront that acknowledges that there's things that are affecting us that we didn't really pay attention to before. And that's there's some big energy movements happening in addition to our consciousness moving. So wow, it's a lot for people. We had somebody come in yesterday who was working on all those things and was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just, I'm working on all this stuff. Why am I not feeling better? Yada, yada, yada. And and I'm trying to tune into their bodies, and bottom line is they were so not grounded. I said, go get in a saltwater bath and just allow your body to ground in and get, you're doing all this high level work. You can't ignore the fact that you have to stay in the present moment. So go take a nice big bath and ground. Also, if you're doing a lot of spiritual work, remember that you have to let go at the cellular level of all of that no longer serves you. So you're doing the mental work, you're doing the spiritual work. Okay, now you have to say, how is that going to be released at the physical level? So if we take deep breaths and we function and go, okay, I'm going to visualize my cells, all my cells, and anything that no longer serves me is going to come out of those cells physically through the sides of my body and out into that bath water, and I'm going to release it. And when I get out of the bath, I'm leaving behind all that no longer serves me. So you're working jointly with your body and your spiritual side and your mental side, and getting it all fleshed out, because we can do all kinds of work and intellectually know. You know what that feels like, right? We intellectually know that's what's happening, but it doesn't make us feel any better.
Right.
So we have to address all of ourselves as a whole. And so if you're doing a lot of spiritual work, be sure that you address the physical. Take those saltwater baths and allow your body to cleanse, and think through the process of releasing all of that no longer serves you. And just let it leach out of your body and into the water, and when it goes down the drain, it's gone. And you can see it go down the drain. So it's a good reinforcement for those thought processes as well. So, any thoughts on consciousness shifts?
You told people to read them. So what are some good sources that people can check out?
If you go onto your news app on your computer or your phone, there's a space for, if you go to the next level, there'll be little dots. Earthquakes is on there. Volcanic eruptions are on there. You can see what's happening in what part of the world that's happening. I'm trying to think. National Geological Society, I think is what it, or atmospheric. Oh gosh, I can't think of the acronym for it. They have all that weather and physical planet data. If you want to look at, it also gives you lightning, and if you look at severe weather, you can see how much we're getting in lightning. Solar flares, it's usually actually in the news. If you go onto a news app, search solar flares, solar activity, solar winds, any of those things. That's helpful to know. And you don't have to be obsessive about knowing what happens every day, but if you feel something different happening to you, then it's the time to kind of investigate what that could be.
But then at the same time, then you, on a really good day, you should investigate and just
see what's going on.
At least differences.
You should. You're absolutely right. It's just like...
and write everything down, like when we first used to talk about it.
Right. If you're keeping track of things going on with you spiritually or physically, journaling is super important because you'll see trends, and you can always go back and look and see if something was affecting that particular trend for you. If you're sleepless for a week, if you're having difficulty sleeping, if you're having weird dreams, electromagnetic changes can affect our dream state because it's a subconscious level. And you know, I don't recommend people have hypnotists regularly, but if there's an issue that you cannot get a grip on, no matter what you search, then think it might be something subconsciously affecting your life that you just don't have a good handle on. Somebody who can look at you from a subconscious level, because 95% of what we are is the subconscious. You could use hypnotism and a hypnotist to try to find out what that underlying cause could be. But appreciate you joining us. If you have questions, leave them in our comments, and we're happy to get back to you and answer those. If there are things that you would like us to address that you don't feel are being addressed, or you want more information, leave those comments, and we will. Spencer reads them.
Eventually, I'm trying to be better.
I don't even know where to find them, so he's reading them. And subscribe if you wish to do so, and we'd be happy to have you as part of the family. So thanks for joining us. Live in love and light, and be well.